to do and where to go. So, Kate, over to you.
I'm here. I am going to talk about 3 shows, if I can manage to fit them in. The first is A Very Jewish Christmas Carol, which is at the Melbourne Theatre Company, written by Elise Esther Hurst with Philip Kavanagh, so 2 writers. And that's going until the 16th of December. And I have to say, I had my reservations about this show. When I wrote about it, I buried my quibbles, but I'll just start there. But it's Christmas with all its tinsel and trees and Jesus, etc., collides with Hanukkah in A Very Jewish Christmas Carol, and it becomes Christmukkah, which some people celebrate. I have friends, each year I go to a picnic which is celebrating Christmas and Hanukkah together because the family, celebrates both. This is, I think you'd have to say, an audacious take on Dickens' A Christmas Carol. The belligerent, miserly, misanthropic Scrooge is a young woman, Elisheva Scroogevich. I think that's a fairly cheap joke, but anyway, it's a gag. She's a reclusive, she's sad, she's a young Jewish woman. She's wrestling with family, intrusive mother, pregnancy, a failing bakery she inherited from her grandmother, her booby, who is played extraordinarily well by Evelyn Crape, who I think is the highlight of this production.
She usually is the highlight of every production she's in.
She's wonderful. And she's in her late 70s. And I thought, or mid-late, I thought that character of the booby, who is actually gone, she's a late grandmother who bequeathed the bakery to this young woman, that she'd make the better Scrooge because she's quite misanthropic herself. She's snipey and critical of everybody. It's cross-cultural sort of images of ghosts in Christmukkah form. There's a reindeer Dybbuk cross. There's a Lilith singing, sort of cabaret singer kind of Lilith. And there's this childlike gingerbread Gollum who's Evelyn Crape, and that is one of the most hilarious things I've seen her do. She's just perky, and it's worth seeing it just to see her gambling about the stage, like a mad wind-up toy. What's interesting is that the audience guffawed at all sorts of things. I wasn't so amused by it all. But at the very end of this, about 80 minutes in, it turns into a completely different play and goes back to the Holocaust and explains why the grandmother will not pass on her gingerbread recipe to the granddaughter, or did not before she died. So I think that bit would make a very interesting play.
All by itself,
a completely different sort of play. Otherwise, I'm doing some dramaturgical stuff here. I shouldn't be doing that. But anyway, I'd rather see
But
the
it sounds like a bit of a schmozzle that they're trying to put an awful lot in there, but it sounds like fun at the end of the day.
Look, a lot of people in the audience found it a hoot. It was fun for them. So, look, if you're interested in that, it's worth seeing, but there is a different Christmas Carol on at the time. Shall we go ahead with that one now?
We're just going to put a track on, Kate.
Okay, let's do a track first.
We are back. So, Kate, on to the next one.
Well, this is the A Christmas Carol, which is the UK Old Vic version production of Dickens' A Christmas Carol. So after this sort of rather hilarious and cross-cultural version of it, the Melbourne version, we've got the UK version written by adapted by Jack Thorne, who did the Cursed Child, I believe, and conceived by Matthew Warchus, who is the director of this production from the Old Vic. It is, I talked about it last year, a year ago. It had David Wenham in the lead then when we talked about it, Nick. And this year it has Owen Teale.
Have they brought him out for this?
They brought him out for it, yeah. So it's an Australian cast, a lot of them the same cast as last year. He did it in London for quite a while, I believe. And it was really worthwhile bringing him because he is exceptional. I have to start there. So look, it's Dickens' ripping yarn adapted for the stage. A whole lot of things are left out because it's to go for a year if you ran the entire book. It's a Christmassy feast of carols and choral harmonies and mass bell ringing, extraordinary music. Snow, faith, hope, charity, and even a feast of fruits and veggies and meat platters and puddings and breads that all slide down from the balcony at the feast at Bob Cratchit's house. Some of it's real food. And in fact, at the beginning, they're handing out mince pies and mandarins. So if you need a snack, pop along. Pre-show music, etc., and lots of nosh. But it is the tale of Ebenezer Scrooge. The miserly misanthrope, as I mentioned before. He only says humbug once, right at the beginning of the show. He imposes unreasonable demands on his dutiful office clerk, Bob Cratchit, who was so noble and genial and kind. I just have to come back to Teal's performance. It's rich, it's nuanced, it's passionate, but I kept thinking it feels effortless and natural. David Wenham did a much more sort of wizened, folded in upon himself sort of Scrooge physically, but it's as if Teal isn't acting at all, rather beautifully, and this warm, honey-toned voice, and it's soothing and charming, even when he's being, a real old
So
bastard.
it's worth seeing for this performance alone. A rare moment in
yes, but not just. Honestly, Nick, it's if I could give it 6 stars, I would, or 10.
How does he do that? How does he turn around? What happens?
That is an extraordinary sort of feat in itself, turning such a misanthropic character into the. Really, is this my lesson? I've learnt my lessons about love and Christmas and family. It's swift, but it's credible. So I think it's from when he meets his sister, Little Fan, who becomes his Christmas future, takes him to his own funeral when there's nobody but his nephew, another lovely genial character that he reviles and pushes out. He thinks everyone's after his money. And Bob Cratchit, they're the only people at his funeral. And he loves that sister who died young. He wants to listen to her, and he won't listen to anybody else. She says, they're not after your money. They just want to care for you. So that's the beginning of the turn, and he goes back to his present after meeting all the Christmases, past, etc. It is a gloriously atmospheric set of tumbled lanterns and the lighting, the dancing, the singing, the music. There's a live band, some in the balcony, some on stage. It's joyful, wonderful theatre.
And when's it on till?
Until the 7th of January now.
Right, so it's plenty
Just
of time.
extended, yes. Get in there and book. It'll sell out.
Well, thank you, Kate.